In this section, we're going to cover how to compress and archive any files on your system, and we will be using compression tools and archiving tools to do that. So let's get started. Compression tools are used to compress one or more files or an archive to save space on your system. The first command we're going to use is gzip. This command creates a compressed file of each of the files specified and adds a .gz extension to the files. And one of the examples that we will cover first is gzip, and then you specify the file name that you want to compress. So let's get started. Currently, let me show you what my location is. I'm going to do a pwd. I'm in a /home/example directory. Let's create a file. So I'm going to create a file called example. Touch space example. Let's do an ls. As you can see, the example, the file we just created called example, is listed in there. Now let's run the command. The command is gzip, and let's mention the file name. The file name is example. I'm going to hit enter on that, and let's do an ls again. As you can see, the file example now shows .gz extension, and it's been compressed. You can also do it to files, you can also do it to directories. To keep it simple, I'm going to show you these examples on this file. As you can see, the file has been compressed, and now it shows as example.gz. GZ stands for gzip, and it's showing you that it's been compressed. Now, next one is how to uncompress a file. To uncompress this file, let's say we wanted to use this file now and we need to uncompress it, we're going to use gunzip or gunzip. So I'm going to type in gunzip. File name is example.gz. I'm going to hit enter. Let's do an ls to see if it actually uncompressed it. As you can see, our extension is gone from example.gz, which was here. Now it's back to example.com as it has been uncompressed. So that's how you use gzip and gunzip to compress or uncompress a file. Let's move on to the next one. Not only you can use gzip or gunzip to compress and uncompress, you can also use bzip2 and bunzip2 to compress and uncompress the same file. So let's get started. Let's try with bzip2 file name. bzip2, and our file name is example. Hit enter. Let's do an ls and see if it did what we wanted it to do, which is to compress that file. As you can see, example.bz2 is now in there. That means the file has been compressed. Now, if you needed to uncompress this file, you would run another command, which I've listed here. Let me highlight it. bunzip2, and the file name is example.bz2. I'm going to hit enter to uncompress it. Let's do an ls to see if it did. As you can see, it has uncompressed the file successfully. This is how you compress and uncompress a file. Moving on to archiving tools. Archiving tools, we can use tar. The tar command, the tar stands for tape archive. So the tar command will create, append, update, list, and extract files to and from a single file called tar file. Tar file is usually known as tarball. If you see me saying tarball, that means it's a tar file. So it's an archived file which is called a tarball. Let me scroll down a little bit and let's use some examples to see how to tar. So the tar command, you can use many options. So let me highlight those. There are many options. I've listed the most frequently used ones, which we will be using in our examples. So for example, you can use tar with C option, which will create a tarball. -V is verbose mode, which means it shows you what it's doing on the screen. F will specify a tarball name, etc., etc. Let's use some of these examples so you can have a better understanding. So for example, let me highlight this command. Tar cvf will, so C will create a tarball, V in verbose mode, F it will specify a tarball name. So we're creating a tar. Most of the time you will be using CVF. So just memorize CVF to create a tarball. So tar CVF example.tar is the name you're giving your tarball. So your archive file is called example.tar, and what you are archiving is a file called example, which we have here. Example. Let me clear the screen and let's run this command. Let's do an ls. As you can see, the example file is listed in there. This is the file we're going to archive or create a tarball from. So tar cvf, let's give it a name. Let's call it example.tar. Now we have to mention which file we are creating a tarball of, which is example. So as you can see, we're creating a tarball with these options. The tarball is called example.tar, and example is the file we're creating a tarball of. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. Let's do an ls. As you can see, the file still exists. When you archive a file or create a tarball, the file will still be there, but you will also have the tarball. As you can see, it has been successfully created. Let me remove our original file. So when we extract it in a later example, you will know that file is no longer there and we recreated that file from the tarball. So I'm going to remove the file. To remove a file, you use rm command, which stands to remove, and then we mention the file name, which is example. Hit yes to remove it. Let's do an ls. As you can see, currently we only have example.tar. So example file is gone. We have a tarball of example file, which is called example.tar. Okay, let's move on to the next command. This command, when you run this command, it will only list contents of the tarball example.tar. This is just to list the contents of what's in the tarball. It will not extract or do anything else. So let's run that, see what happens. Tar tvf and example.tar. Hit enter on that. And let's do an ls. Actually, let's not do an ls. Right here, it's showing you in that tarball, which I have highlighted here, example.tar, what does it have? It's showing it has example file. It shows you other information as well, when it was created, rights, etc. But the name of the file is listed in here. So if you wanted to extract a bunch of files, you can list them first to see if those are the files you actually need to extract, or what does your tarball have. We're just doing one file. If you had 10 files, it would list them in here by running this command. Now, we have this file already. So let me do an ls again. The file is example.tar. So let's see if we needed to untar it, or if we needed to extract this file. How would we do that? To do that, we would do tar xvf example.tar. As you can see here, X option extracts from a tarball. So that's why we're using an option called X. So let's run this command so you can see how you can extract a certain file, or um, use this command to untar. Tar xvf, name of the file is example.tar, hit enter. Let's do an ls. As you can see, our file is back now. So we have untarred it successfully, and our .tar file still exists. Next example that we have is actually, let's remove example.tar so you have no confusion. Again, rm to remove example.tar. We're going to remove this. Hit yes to remove. Let's clear the screen. Now I'm going to do an ls again so you know what we have in our directory right now. We're back to having just one file in there, and the next command we're going to use is not only going to create a tarball, but it will also compress it. Earlier examples, we compressed a file, and then on the second examples we tarred the file, or did an archive, created an archive of the file. But you can do both of them by running one command. You can also create a tarball, and you can also compress it with gzip. This is the command we can run to not only create a tarball but also compress a certain file. So let's do that, and let's use the same file example for this example. So let's run tar cvzf. As you can see, we've added z here. Z stands for creating a zip file, gzip. So basically it's compressing it and also creating a tarball. So those are the options you would want to use when you're archiving and compressing. So tar cvzf, file name that we want to give it. So let's call it example.tar.gz. You would want to follow the same way, um, the same name I'm giving. For example, you had a different file called boot.tar, boot. So if you had a file called boot, make sure you name it boot.tar.gz. So if you have a lot of archives and you have a lot of compressed files, you would know it's not only a tar, but it's also a gzip compressed file. So this will make it easier for you in the future when you're looking at a file. You know it's not only archived, but it's also compressed file. Now, we've run so far the tar with options and the name we want to give it, and we want to apply this to our file example. So let's run that command, see what happens. Let's do an ls. As you can see, earlier we just had example, and now we have example.tar.gz. That means our original file example is also a tarball, and it's also compressed. Now let's say you wanted to uncompress it in the future, because you have deleted your original file example, and now you need that file. To uncompress it, you would run this command, and you can retrieve your files. So to make it more clear, let's remove our original file example. I'm removing the file. I'm going to yes to confirm to remove it. Let's do an ls. As you can see, now we don't have the original file. We just have the tarball, which is compressed tar.gz. Now we're going to untar and uncompress it so we can have our original file back. Command is tar xvzf. X means extract, and we're going to tell it which file to uncompress and untar. Hit enter. Let's do an ls to see if we got our original file back. As you can see, our original file, which was this one, the tarball, which was compressed, was there. Now we have our original file back as well, which is example. And this is how you uh, do compression and archive on files. You can also use it on directories. It is a very useful tool. If you become a Linux professional, this is something you will be using. Or if you're using it for your personal computing, you can also save space by using these methods. I hope you learned something useful from this video as well, and I'll see you in the next one.